One scrimmage in the books, and Neal Brown is a little on edge. I'm Schuyler Callihan here on Between the Ears, part of the Mountaineers SI Fan Nation channel, and it's definitely a little concerning to hear the tone in Neal Brown's voice from yesterday's press conference. If you haven't checked it out, go on our site of Mountaineers Now. We've got the full press conference up there for you. And in the first about 4 or 5 minutes, he pretty much just describes how the entire scrimmage goes. Defense, offense, special teams. He talks about it all. I wouldn't say that he came out and said, like, hey, we just had a bad scrimmage, but some of the things that he was saying, a little alarming to me. First off, he started off saying, I'm pissed off, players are pissed off, coaches are pissed off, and I'm thinking, oh my, this is not good if he's talking about the scrimmage. And then he goes on to say about how tough of a week this is going to be, and that's why everyone's pissed off, because it's 9, 10, 11 practices in, and you got school starting tomorrow, and this is really the big week for the football program, because this is really when you start to see that separation take place, or you need to see that separation take place so you can get ready for Penn State week 1. And you can just sense that urgency and sense that anxiousness in Neal's presence, not so much in his voice, but just the way he's coming across. And when he's talking about each position, it's a little, again, it's alarming to me, and I think we've seen this kind of in the past too. When Neal gets in this kind of this state of mind, or this kind of the way he comes across in press conferences, usually it means he's ticked off and something's not going right. And well, anyways, just have a listen. Here's a little bit of a piece from that press conference about the scrimmage on Saturday.
I'll start defensively. I thought just overall we did a good job of getting lined up, and that's been, my biggest things have been alignment, physicality, and getting to the ball. Really a straining deal getting to the ball, and I thought our alignments were good. A couple off of the twos, but our alignments were pretty solid overall. I would say we're almost there as far as getting to the ball, but we're not quite where we need to be. And then the physicality piece, we're being physical. We just got to, when we go into tackle situations, we've got to do a good job of running our feet. And it's like I was telling our team at the end, it's like, listen, guys, like, reason I'm like intense today, the reason I'm going to be intense this week is like, we're not easing into this. Like we're not easing into this thing. Like, I was sitting there yesterday and I had some downtime probably, which isn't good. So I'm watching a little Penn State, and like I'm watching them on offense, and like we're not easing into this. So like if you don't run your feet on contact versus those three backs they got, it's going to be a long day. So we got to run our feet on contact. And so that's the thing from a physicality standpoint we got to do a better job of, is running our feet. I think our D-line is doing better. We're a group that's going to be by committee. All right, so we're deeper than we have been. Maybe we don't have a guy like Dante that's sticking out right now, but we're deeper than we have been. But it's going to be by committee, and so we're going to play 9 to 11 guys up there, and we're going to roll them. And so, but when they're in there for their 3 to 5 plays, they got to be, they got to be playing with pad level. They got to be striking with their hands, and that group's getting better. Like I'm pleased with their development. Linebacker, a work in progress. That's a position we're putting a lot of pressure on. The way I look at it is every practice that I'm making, I'm like, okay, how can I stress our defense at linebacker to get them ready, where they have to communicate, them and Aubrey. And then on offense, like, how can I put the most stress possible on the quarterbacks? And then Aubrey Burks had a great camp. And I thought in the scrimmage on Saturday, our corners, I thought Lamp and Beanie both made some plays. And then Anthony Wilson is showing up. And so he's been a positive addition. Offensively, the quarterbacks, we did some situational work. Nico had a really good 2-minute drive at the end of the scrimmage. Struggled with some decision making early. I thought Garrett was pretty solid. He ran around, made a couple scramble plays, but really just solid in his decision making on Saturday. Our running backs, Jalen Anderson, had a really good day. Was productive. He's a guy we need. We just got to get him in shape. He's got to be able to play continuous plays, but he's talented. Jaheim White was good. He was better without the ball, and that's what you always worry about with running backs early in their career is can they play away from the ball when the ball's not in their hands? Can they lead block? Can they pass pro? Can they run routes? And I thought he did a better job, and Justin Johnson was really consistent. We took it easy on CJ. Justin's been probably our most consistent player at that position during fall camp. Tight end, we focused kind of more on the run game. We didn't throw it a ton in the scrimmage just because we wanted to kind of set the tone for our defense. And so, they did okay, but we didn't put any stress on them in the pass game. Traylon Ray, true freshman receiver, was our leading receiver in the scrimmage. And he's, from a freshman standpoint, he's doing some good things, and I think he'll be in the mix for us. And then Preston and Hudson Clement both had nice days. So, they give you some insight.
So first, let's start with the defense. He's saying that they are having to put stress on the linebackers, or they're trying to find ways to put stress on the linebackers and Aubrey Burks. They don't have a guy up front like they did with Dante Stills last year, and that they're going to rotate 9 to 11 guys. I mean, I don't see how you rotate 9 to 11 guys. That's a lot of mouths to feed, and I think you're going to have to tighten that down at some point. Maybe to start the season you can do that, but as the season matures, you need to have at least, I would probably say at most probably 7, 8 at most, rotating up front. But you hear those types of words. You hear that, well, they lined up. Okay, well that's elementary stuff, right? This isn't okay. We checked the box of wow, we lined up. That's not progress. Okay, maybe from last year it is, but that's general day one type stuff. We shouldn't be talking about this 2 weeks in. Getting to the ball, they're not quite there, and getting to the ball again. 2 weeks into this, I mean, you shouldn't have to be putting stress on the linebackers and putting stress on a guy in the secondary that everyone is so excited about, and rightfully so, when we're this deep into fall camp. I don't get it. And again, maybe I'm just totally reading into this whole situation wrong, and that's very possible. This is just my point of view. I'm not saying that things are going bad in Morgantown. I'm not saying that whatsoever. This is just from what I'm taking out of this press conference. You go to the offensive side of the ball. Okay, we all know about the offensive line. They're seeming to be set. But what no one talks about is right guard. And he didn't really mention it in that little bit of a clip, but he did talk about it in that press conference. Again, if you want to go check it out, go on to Mountaineers Now, the whole thing's up there, where Jaquay Hubbard and Brandon Yates have been battling it out, and those two battled it out at right tackle last year. Hubbard ended up starting, I think, 11 of the games, but Yates was rotated in. We may see a similar thing there. To me, that's not being set from tackle to tackle. You have a gaping hole at right guard until someone goes and takes that damn job. And I don't know that we're going to see that, because I think both guys are fairly even. They both bring different things to the table. And quite frankly, both probably need to be on the field. And there's not that big of a disparity between the two. So when you have that rotation going on throughout a game, throughout the course of a season, you're not going to be set from tackle to tackle. You're always going to have to adjust. And what does Tomas Remack look like at left guard? I mean, he looked very strong last year in his first full year, or not first full year, but his first time as a starter. Year two, do we see a little bit of a slump? How does he hold up? I mean, that's a big question mark. Doug Nestor's kicking out the right tackle, a position he hasn't played in a few years. So there's still a lot, even though the pieces are there up front for the offensive line. I think you have to be cautious in starting to say, hey, this is one of the best offensive lines in the country. It has the potential to be. It's not the best offensive line or one of the best just yet. It has the potential to be. But more into what Neal was talking about. So the tight ends didn't really get involved. They didn't really throw the ball around all that much. And to me, we've heard about this tight end group for a while now, right? We're going to get the tight ends involved more. They're going to get more involved in the passing game, yada yada yada. We've heard this for years, and it just hasn't happened. And is this foreshadowing in that maybe the tight ends are really not going to be as involved as we once thought they were again? Or was Neal just telling the flat out truth and saying, "Hey, we only threw the ball like 12 times in the scrimmage"? I mean, I don't know, and that's the downside about colleges not allowing, or at least WVU not allowing media inside of these practices. You have to go on what the coach says, and you have no idea what the hell happened in that scrimmage. But he talked about the receivers as well a little bit and said, again, with them not throwing the ball as much, you don't really know. But he did say that Traylon Ray, a true freshman that just arrived to campus only but a few weeks ago, was the leading receiver. And I mean, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it isn't. I don't know. Based on history, this is bad news. I mean, you're talking about a true freshman coming in who's only been here for a short period of time and led the team in receiving. When you go back and look at the receiver production under Neal Brown, it has not been good at all. We all know that. So, going off of what only I can go off of, because we're not allowed to practice to get eyes on the whole thing, that tells me something's going on in that receiver room. They don't have answers right now. Later on in the press conference video, he said there's a group of guys that are ready, and there's a group of guys that he's trying to get ready. My question is, how big is that group of guys that are ready? Is it 1, 2, 3, or is it 5 or 6? And they're trying to get maybe like the young bucks, like Ray and Rodney Gallagher, to come along. That's a big question. Or is it, a situation where it's just Devin Carter and Jeremiah Aaron and Cortez Bray, and you have those three, and you're still trying to figure out the next two? That's a question mark for me. It just it for whatever reason, it just feels like there's a very intense feeling coming out of that press conference that they are anxious to find answers, because right now it doesn't seem like they have very many at certain spots. And it just felt, again, this is not explaining how the scrimmage went, because I have no idea. Nobody does. It just felt like an oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, Penn State's coming up, oh crap, we got to figure out answers. And when you get that, when you hear those types of things in the press conference, Like I just rattled off, oh, we're not getting to the ball. We're having to put stress on this guy and these positions, and we're still trying to get this group of receivers going, and you still don't have a quarterback figured out. I mean, it just doesn't sound like this team is right where it needs to be. Again, could be wrong on that. But you go to the quarterback situation, and I mean, I'm just going to be honest. It sounds like Garrett won the scrimmage on Saturday. We don't have the numbers. We don't have the film from what happened in that scrimmage. But Neal talked about it. I think it was prior to the scrimmage, maybe it was last Thursday or Wednesday, whatever. The last time he talked to us was, and said decision making is going to be a major part of what goes into naming the starting quarterback. Duh, right? I mean, and that's not saying anything about Neal. It's just obvious. Decision making is a big key at the quarterback position. And Neal said that Nico Marchiol had a really good 2 minute period, but struggled with some decision making at times. Garrett Green was just flat out solid, was solid all day, was good with his decision making. So to me, just based on that very short uh, evaluation, Garrett Green checked off scrimmage number one and is in the lead for that job. Now, is that who they want to win the job? Is there someone that they would rather have win that job? I don't know. I think they love the potential in Nico Marchiol. I think they love what he offers in the long term view of, hey, that's a guy that they could potentially build around for 3-4 years, whatever. But you got to give your team the best chance to win right now. And from what I saw in the spring and from everything that I've heard in the first couple of weeks of fall camp, Garrett Green has to be that guy. And another reason that I pointed out, I believe on in the gun with Jed Drenning, is you have to put both of those quarterbacks in a position of success. Okay. If you start Garrett Green at Penn State, he's probably more able and more ready for that situation than Nico is. He's been in games before, he's played against big time opponents, and he's been in the system for years. If you put Nico Marchiol in that game, and just let's just say that this is what happens. If you put Nico in that game as the starter, and for some reason he just gets beat up like a drum, and it just goes bad. It like absolutely atrociously bad. That could destroy his confidence. And something that Neal has talked about time and time again with quarterbacks is you cannot put him in until they're ready. Last year, Nico had to go in because Garrett got hurt in that Oklahoma State game. So he had to. He had no other choice. But when you have a choice, you have to be careful. Is Nico ready for that? I don't know. Only the coaching staff knows. Only Nico knows. But I'm not really willing to find out if Nico Marchiol is ready by throwing him in the fire and seeing what the results are. If you put Garrett Green out there and things go bad, I think he's going to be able to handle that a little bit better just because of the experience, number one. And number two, he's dealt with that before. He's dealt with some struggles. He knows how to overcome some of that stuff. With Nico, if that happens, you may never get that kid's confidence back. You may never. You just don't know with quarterbacks how they respond, how they react. You may see them respond to a really bad day of practice and come back the next day and they're fine. But when you do it in the game, it's completely different. That's the real deal, man. Like that can really destroy a kid's confidence, especially at that position. Quarterbacks are fragile, and Neal said that. The quarterback position, you got some fragile guys in there. And it's not that they're not tough. It's just it's a tough, taxing position mentally. And when things don't go right, you can lose that confidence because only one guy gets the snaps. It's not a position where you can rotate in 3 or 4 different guys, or you have 3 or 4 different, quarterbacks on the field. You have one guy. And if you lose that opportunity, you may never get it back. So again, to me, it sounded like Garrett Green won that first scrimmage. I don't think they're ready to name a starter anytime soon. I still think that's something that's going to happen later in the month. We may not see that happen until, the Neal Brown show the Thursday prior to them kicking things off in Happy Valley. So I think we're still a ways away from figuring out who's going to win that job. I think we will see both of them at some point this season in one way or another. But again, if I'm a West Virginia fan, I would be a little concerned right now with how that first scrimmage went. Still very early. There's still a lot of time between now and kickoff, so a lot of things can get fixed. There could be a lot of answers found, and this whole fall camp can really start spiraling in a good direction. And maybe it already has. And again, I could have just completely read that wrong. It's again out there. Check it out on Mountaineers Now if you want to check it out. And you saw the little clip that we just played for your own judgment. But to me, it seems like they're still searching for answers, and they're searching for answers at key spots this deep into fall camp. So I don't know. Maybe it's just how the last 4 years have went in Morgantown that would have me a little on edge or, uncertain about where things are at. But buckle up. That's all I got to say. So that's going to do it for today's episode of Between the Ears. I'm Schuyler Callihan. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Mountaineers Now. Click that subscribe button on YouTube and give us a like on our page at Mountaineers Now as well. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll be back here with another episode in a few days.